They were the kind of couple others spoke of with envy, so different, yet perfectly in sync. He was reserved, loyal, predictable. She was vibrant, bold, untamed. Together they built more than just a routine. They created a small world where love felt eternal. But one day, it all cracked. One dinner, one glass of wine, one suggestion that turned everything upside down. Not a scandal, not betrayal, but a quiet idea disguised as a new chapter. And suddenly, their home became a stage, not for love's survival, but for the battle to preserve dignity. Questions were left unanswered, eyes unwept, and love without a future. But the most important part was only beginning. What does a person do when they've lost everything except themselves? How far are they willing to go to reclaim freedom, respect, and peace? The answer lies in every step he takes after that evening. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. My name is Adrian, and for most of my adult life, I saw marriage as something sacred and unshakable. I first crossed paths with Clara during our college years. She was fierce, vibrant, with a rebellious edge, while I was the cautious one who always played it safe. We were a classic case of opposites attracting. She pushed me to break out of my shell, and I helped her stay grounded. Getting married felt like the next natural step. Our tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city barely had room for us, but love made it feel like a palace. Sunday mornings were for pancakes, sliding around the kitchen in socks, and groaning at her endlessly corny puns. Then, life picked up speed. Careers became demanding, and adulthood began piling on more than we could manage. We upgraded to a sleek townhouse, brought in better paychecks, and settled into a more comfortable lifestyle. But something shifted in Clara. She started coming home late after work, got absorbed in solo pursuits. I told myself it was just her free spirit at play, the very thing that had once drawn me to her. But the space between us kept growing. Our conversations became surface level and infrequent. She was often more absorbed in her phone than present with me. I made efforts, planned weekend getaways, arranged cozy date nights, but she always declined. She was too drained, swamped with work, or already had plans with friends. I brushed it off as a rough patch. Don't all couples go through that? Then one evening, we were shoulder to shoulder at the kitchen sink, washing dishes after dinner. She fumbled a plate, and it shattered on the tile floor. She muttered something I couldn't catch, then looked up at me with an intensity that caught me off guard. Her eyes said more than words, like she was holding something back, teetering on the edge of a confession. At last, she broke the silence. "Adrian, we should talk." I turned off the tap. "About what?" I asked, wary. She paused. "I've been thinking about us, and maybe it's time for something different." I nodded slowly, unsure of her meaning. "Sure," I said. "A vacation? Or maybe we pick up something new? Hiking, painting classes?" She exhaled a long, heavy sigh. "Not exactly." Her eyes flickered shut for a second before meeting mine again. "I'm talking about a deeper change." My chest tightened. Her voice was calm, but there was a weight to it that put me on edge. I tried to keep my cool, but tension buzzed just beneath my skin. I didn't know what was coming, only that it felt important. Over the next few days, she kept dropping cryptic hints. She talked about wanting to feel excitement again, to rekindle the energy we once had. She never got specific, just promised she'd share her full idea soon. I'll admit, I was torn between curiosity and dread. Then, on a quiet Friday evening, she set the table like it was a special occasion, something we hadn't done in a long time. She cooked a full steak dinner, roasted vegetables on the side, lit candles, and poured us each a glass of red wine. "I've been reading," she began, gently spinning her glass by the stem, "about couples exploring open marriages, staying together but also being free to see other people. I almost choked. The wine burned going down the wrong way. Open marriage? I asked between coughs. You mean we'd both date other people while still being married? She met my eyes cautiously. Not just date, she said, her voice quieter. We'd be open to other intimate relationships too. It's something some couples do to bring back passion. I carefully set my glass on the table. You really think that is the answer for us? She gave a slight shrug. I think it's worth considering. We've grown. We're not the same people anymore. Maybe this would help us figure out what's missing. I felt my grip tighten around the base of my glass. Clara, I said, steady but firm. I can't do that. If we're struggling, we work on it. Together. We don't fix our marriage by bringing in other people. Why not? She countered, eyes sharp and searching. It's not unheard of anymore. People try new things. Marriage doesn't have to be this confining box. We'd still be us, but with room to explore. We'd set rules. I shook my head, thoughts flying. That's not what marriage means to me, I said, my voice cracking a little. I'm not wired that way. I believe in loyalty, in exclusivity. I can't share you, and I don't want anyone else either. She looked like she was about to argue, but I cut her off. You asked how I felt, and this is it. I'm being honest. That would destroy me. Her expression hardened, her jaw clenched. You're stuck in your old ideas, she snapped. Don't you realize how dull things have gotten? I'm bored, Adrian. I took a deep breath, trying not to raise my voice. I know things aren't the same, I said, but I still believe we can fix it. We can go to counseling, take a real break from work, start fresh somehow, but not like this. What you're suggesting, I just can't do it. She pushed back her chair with a sharp scrape and stood abruptly. Fine, she said, her voice clipped. Forget I said anything. She marched up the stairs without a word, leaving me behind at the dining table, staring at the plate she'd barely touched and the untouched wine glass beside it. I remained there, the bitter aftertaste of the wine lingering, her words still ringing in my ears. I'm bored. And then the one that pierced deeper. Marriage shouldn't feel like confinement. Something shifted inside me. Maybe something broke. I couldn't shake the sense that we'd crossed a threshold we couldn't retreat from. From that point on, we coexisted under a brittle, silent truce. Clara never revisited the conversation, but the air between us changed. She began coming home later than usual, always armed with vague explanations, extended meetings, work dinners that dragged on. I wanted to believe her, tried to trust her, but a creeping unease took hold. Every time I brought up my concerns, she shut me down. Adrian, I'm exhausted. Can we not do this right now? It felt like shouting into an abyss. The more she drifted away, the more desperately I tried to make sense of it all. I reached out to Martin and met him at a coffee shop. His expression darkened as soon as he saw me. You look like hell. What's going on? Leaning in, I kept my voice low. Clara's been talking about wanting an open marriage. I told her I can't do that. But now, she's distant, changed. I think she might already be seeing someone else. He leaned forward, his jaw tight. That's a huge warning sign. If she's emotionally checked out, you're in dangerous territory. Have you guys even talked about therapy? I brought it up, I said. She wouldn't even consider it. He stared at me, eyes hard. You can't let her twist your arm into something that goes against who you are. That's not what love is. I looked down. I still love her. He let out a long breath, the kind that carries too much weight. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. His words stuck with me. When I left that cafe, I felt both clearer and heavier. Part of me still hoped we could come back from this. But deep inside, a quieter voice was already telling me it was too late. 2 weeks later, Clara didn't come home until after 1 a.m. She walked in, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. She tossed her purse on the couch and poured herself a glass of water like it was any ordinary night. "You're still up?" she asked casually. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Where were you?" "Out," she answered. "Just drinks after work. A few co-workers." I muted the television. "Clara, we need to have a real conversation." Her shoulders stiffened. "About what?" "These late nights. About whether there's something going on that I should know about." Her hand gripped the glass tighter. "I've been transparent with you. I told you what I needed. You chose not to listen." I stood up and stepped toward her. "That doesn't give you the right to hide things from me." She looked away. "We've been over this 100 times. If I wanted to see someone else, I'd tell you." "But the thought's crossed your mind, hasn't it?" There was a pause. Then she admitted, "Not yet, but yeah, it has." A knot formed in my chest. The person I once knew so well was slipping further away, like sand through my fingers. We stood in silence, both aware that we were teetering on the edge of something that couldn't be undone. And then it happened, the moment everything truly unraveled. Clara had started leaving early in the morning and coming home well past dark. One evening, she sent a brief text at 7. "Out with coworkers. Don't wait up." Normally, I might have accepted that. But something about this time felt off. I remembered an old app we'd used years ago, one of those phone locators we installed in case we lost a device. We hadn't used it in ages, but I'd never removed it. I knew it was a breach of trust, but I was drowning in doubt. I needed to know. I opened the app. Her phone was on the other side of town, nowhere near her usual haunts. I grabbed my keys and drove. The location led me to a sleek, trendy restaurant, glowing under bright neon lights. Her car was parked right up front. I pulled into a shadowy spot at the edge of the lot and waited. After about 30 minutes, she emerged from the building. She wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize walked beside her, smiling as he leaned in close. His arm wrapped around her waist, and she let him. My stomach dropped. I watched as they headed toward a sleek black car. Clara glanced around briefly, and I ducked, heart hammering in my chest. Their laughter drifted through the air. Then they got into his car and drove off. I followed, hanging back several vehicles. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, but I couldn't. I had to see it through. About 10 minutes later, they pulled into the parking lot of a modest hotel. My hands were shaking as I tightened my grip on the wheel. I watched them get out, still holding hands, and walk into the lobby together. A fire of anger and heartbreak surged in my chest. I wanted to confront her right then and there, demand an explanation, scream, ask her why. But I didn't. I sat in the car, frozen, hollowed out. Eventually, I drove home in a daze, the road blurring beneath me. It was nearly 10 p.m. by the time I stepped through the front door. I sat down in the darkness, every part of me numb, haunted by the scene that kept replaying in my head. And in that deep, aching silence, I reached a decision. I couldn't keep living like this, tangled in suspicion, aching with uncertainty. If Clara wanted something else, she was free to chase it. But I wouldn't be part of it. That night, I made my choice. I would vanish from her world as quietly and cleanly as I could. Later, I heard the front door creak open. Her footsteps padded softly down the hallway, as if nothing had changed at all. I stayed silent. She didn't offer an explanation, and I didn't ask for one. Lying next to her, staring blankly at the ceiling, I felt the final weight of it all take hold. The following morning, I went through the motions, got dressed, drank a quick cup of coffee, and pretended not to notice the wary glance she gave me from across the room. "I'm going to be home late," I said as I scooped my keys off the counter. "Work's piling up, some tight turnarounds." She gave a small nod. "Okay, see you tonight." I forced a thin, almost non-existent smile, then stepped out the door. But instead of driving to the office, I headed straight out of the city to my parents' place, about an hour away. Their house was modest, a single-level home tucked into a quiet cul-de-sac. My mother, Emma, opened the front door, and her face immediately filled with worry when she saw me. "Adrian, what's going on?" she asked, pulling me inside without hesitation. My dad, Gavin, appeared from the hallway, his expression darkening with concern. I told them everything, how things had fallen apart, how she started coming home later and later, the uncomfortable conversation about opening our marriage, and finally, the night I followed Clara to that hotel. They both listened in silence. My mother's eyes welled up. My father clenched his jaw. When I finished, they offered me a place to stay, but I already had other plans. "I'm not staying," I said. "I just needed to tell you. I'm heading back, packing my things, and I'm gone, for good." My dad placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "We'll support you, no matter what," he said. I stayed for a few hours, long enough for the storm in my chest to quiet a little. Then I got back in the car. Her car wasn't in the driveway when I returned. She was still at work. Inside, I moved quickly, focused. I gathered only what mattered: clothes, documents, my laptop, irreplaceable photos. I filled bags and boxes, each heartbeat pounding as I half expected her to walk in mid-pack. But she didn't. The house stayed silent. When everything was loaded into my truck, I stood for a moment, taking in the space one last time. I didn't leave a note. No farewell. Just the soft click of the door as it closed behind me. I merged onto the highway, watching the skyline shrink in my rearview mirror. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed distance. Distance from Clara, and from everything that came with her. Hours later, I checked into a hotel in a different city. Once inside, I sat down, opened my laptop, and drained every cent from our joint account into my own. Then I canceled every shared credit card. That was the true ending. A clean break. I knew she'd notice soon, and I braced myself for what would follow. The calls started a few days later. At first, I ignored them. Then I listened. Her voicemails were chaotic, a wild pendulum swing from rage to desperation. "Adrian, what is this? The bank account's wiped out. I can't use any of our cards. You can't just vanish. We're still legally married. You can't just take everything and disappear." Then her voice shifted, softer, fragile. "Please, Adrian, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I needed something different. I didn't think I'd lose you. Please, call me." I deleted them all. No response. She had made her choice, and I was making mine. Leaving wasn't betrayal, it was follow-through. I left her the house. She could figure out the bills and mortgage without me. A flicker of guilt surfaced, but it vanished when I remembered seeing her with him. That moment at the hotel erased any sympathy I might have held. I never answered another call. Each day, I felt lighter, like I was shedding everything she had weighed me down with. I missed some parts of us, the quiet routines, the private jokes, but they weren't worth the cost of staying. Eventually, I rented a small apartment and started fresh. I worked remotely, lived simply, and began looking forward again. Now and then, I wondered how she was dealing with the silence, but the thought never stayed long. She chose to break what we had. I chose to move on. And in time, the bitterness gave way to calm. The anger faded. I let go. And for the first time in a long while, I felt free. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. He always believed he was living by the rules: a stable marriage, a successful career, a peaceful future. Everything collapsed after a single dinner. One casually spoken sentence turned his reality into an emotional minefield. What followed were unspoken truths, unfamiliar scents on pillows, long nights alone, and silences that echoed too loudly. He gave in because he believed in love, but love had already slipped through his fingers, replaced by an experiment he was never prepared for. And then she appeared. A woman no one was supposed to know about, whose name had no place outside of business correspondence. A chance encounter, or a carefully orchestrated revenge? When the old rules no longer apply, there's only one thing left: to create your own. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. I'm a 34-year-old man, married to my 32-year-old wife, and we've shared 8 years together. Our journey started back in college, where we were both studying for business degrees. After dating for 3 years, we tied the knot and created what I believed was a stable and happy life. For the past 4 years, my wife has been employed at a prestigious marketing firm. Her boss, a 36-year-old woman, founded the agency herself and built it into a powerhouse. She's striking, highly successful, and, according to my wife, an imposing figure at work. Over the years, I had encountered her at several professional events. She was always courteous, but kept a certain distance. I assumed she was simply maintaining professionalism. Now, I'm not so sure. Roughly 6 months ago, my wife's behavior started to change. She became emotionally remote, constantly on her phone, staying late at work, and pulling away from our relationship. When I finally confronted her, worried she might be having an affair, she denied cheating, but instead dropped a bombshell I hadn't anticipated. One evening after dinner, she looked me in the eyes and said, "I think we should explore the idea of an open marriage. We're young, and it feels like we're missing out on experiences. Don't you want more excitement in life?" I was completely taken aback. We had never so much as hinted at this idea before. As far as I was concerned, our relationship was fulfilling and our life together, steady and happy. When I pushed her for more explanation, she spoke vaguely about wanting personal growth and exploring different relationship dynamics. After weeks of tense discussions, emotional blowouts, and even some sessions with a couples therapist, I reluctantly agreed. She insisted that opening our marriage would ultimately strengthen our bond, and she assured me it would remain strictly physical. We laid down clear rules: no involvement with close friends, full honesty about any encounters, and the right for either of us to veto potential partners. "This will actually build more trust between us," she said. "You'll see." Truthfully, I didn't have any burning desire to date anyone else. I loved my wife and had been completely satisfied with the life we had. Yet, she jumped into this new arrangement head first, signing up for dating apps almost immediately. It didn't seem spontaneous at all, more like something she had been planning for a while. Soon she was often out late, coming home smelling like alcohol and strange cologne, offering only vague summaries of her evenings. Anytime I pressed for details, she'd remind me, "Remember, no jealousy. It's just physical. Don't turn it into something it's not." I felt devastated. My self-esteem plummeted as I wrestled with mental images of her with other men. But I had agreed to this, and now I was trapped in it. After a month of lonely evenings at home while she embraced her new life, I finally decided maybe I should try dating as well. That's when something unexpected happened. A message appeared in my LinkedIn inbox. It was from my wife's boss, inviting me to grab coffee and discuss a potential collaboration. Given that my career is in event planning, not marketing, I found the message both surprising and intriguing. Curious, I agreed to meet. As soon as we sat down, it became obvious there was no professional project to discuss. Instead, her boss, let's call her Violet, confessed that she had always found me attractive, but had kept her distance out of respect for my marriage. However, now she knew from my wife that we were in an open relationship. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," Violet said, "but I've been wanting to ask you out ever since that first holiday party. Now that you're both seeing other people, I thought I'd finally take my shot." I was stunned, not just because Violet was interested, but because my wife had apparently shared private details of our marriage with her boss. It felt like a serious betrayal of trust. Yet Violet was charismatic, intelligent, and, after the initial awkwardness faded, surprisingly easy to talk to. We ended up chatting for hours, and I genuinely enjoyed myself. She was direct about her feelings, but also respectful of the situation. After giving it serious thought, I figured, why shouldn't I have a little happiness too? If my wife was taking full advantage of our new arrangement, then so could I. Violet and I started dating, and honestly, it surpassed anything I had imagined. She was attentive, passionate, and genuinely interested in me, not just on a physical level, but emotionally and intellectually as well. We bonded over shared passions for travel, fine dining, and similar goals for the future. I hadn't expected to form such a deep connection. But then, everything blew up. One night after a date, Violet dropped me off at home. As fate would have it, my wife pulled up at the exact same moment and saw us kissing in Violet's high-end car. Her face morphed from shock to pure rage in an instant. Without saying a word, she stormed into the house. I braced myself for what I knew was coming. The second I stepped inside, she exploded. "You're dating my boss?" she screamed. "Out of everyone, you had to pick her?" I stayed calm and reminded her that this situation was the result of her idea, the open marriage she had pushed so hard for, and pointed out that she had been seeing other men for months. "It's completely different," she shouted. "She's my boss! This is humiliating! Everyone at work is going to find out!" I stood my ground and said, "You're the one who wanted this. You're the one who's been staying out all night. You're the one who told your boss about our private arrangement. How is any of this my fault?" It was during that conversation that my wife revealed something I had never known before. Apparently, Violet had been quietly competing with her for years, often favoring the advancement of others while sidelining my wife despite her hard work. My wife believed that Violet had only started dating me to spite her, aiming to humiliate her in the process. "She's using you to get back at me," my wife insisted. "She's always been jealous of what I have." I found her claim ridiculous and told her so. "Maybe she actually likes me?" I countered. But my wife was adamant. She insisted I break things off with Violet immediately, invoking the veto rule we'd agreed on. I refused. The veto rule had been created to protect us in case a new relationship made either of us feel genuinely unsafe or endangered, not to serve as a means of controlling each other's relationships. As the weeks went by, while my bond with Violet grew deeper, the cracks in my marriage widened. My wife became either coldly silent or explosively confrontational. She accused me of betrayal, saying I had entangled myself with someone in her professional circle, someone with the power to affect her career. And soon, the situation escalated. My wife went to Violet's brother, who was also an employee at the same company, and falsely claimed I was a habitual cheater pursuing Violet only for her money. He confronted Violet, but, fortunately, she saw through the lies. When that tactic failed, my wife took things even further, spreading damaging gossip at work, suggesting Violet was abusing her authority by getting involved with a subordinate spouse, insinuating it was sexual harassment. Her plan backfired spectacularly when Violet addressed the rumors directly in a formal meeting, publicly acknowledging our relationship and stepping away from any professional decisions related to my wife's career. The final collapse happened one evening while Violet and I were having dinner at a restaurant. My wife burst in, threw a glass of wine at Violet, and unleashed a torrent of vulgar insults before security removed her. Despite the humiliating scene, Violet stayed impressively poised, though it was clear the incident shook her deeply. Later that night, when I returned home briefly to collect some essentials before staying elsewhere, I found my wife waiting. She was calmer, but crying uncontrollably. Between sobs, she confessed, "I made a huge mistake. She begged me to end the open marriage and go back to how things used to be. "I'll do anything," she pleaded. I needed to ask the question that had haunted me all along. Why did you really suggest an open marriage? After a long, painful pause, she admitted she had already fallen for a coworker and had slept with him before even proposing the idea to me. She wanted to pursue her affair without carrying the guilt of cheating, but things had ended disastrously. "He was just using me for intimacy and bragging about it in front of his friends," she said bitterly. "I ruined our marriage for nothing." A cold, unfamiliar anger settled in me. It became crystal clear. The open marriage idea had been nothing but a ploy, a way for her to retroactively justify her betrayal. She hadn't been seeking mutual exploration or deeper honesty. She had been trying to cover up what she'd already done. "And now you're upset because I found someone who actually values me?" I asked coldly. In a moment of brutal vulnerability, she whispered, "I didn't think you'd find anyone." That simple admission revealed everything. She had seen me as the safe, reliable fallback, never believing anyone else would want me. She never imagined I'd meet someone like Violet, someone more accomplished, more self-assured, and quite frankly, more desirable than she was. In that moment, I knew without a doubt that our marriage was beyond saving. I told her I wanted a divorce and left to stay with my brother while I planned my next steps. But she wouldn't let it end quietly. She flooded my phone with messages, swinging wildly between heartfelt apologies, bitter accusations, and desperate pleas for reconciliation. Then she dragged others into the chaos. She called my parents, claiming I was having a midlife crisis and being manipulated by a wealthy woman. My mother was initially worried until I explained the full story. Her disappointment was directed entirely at my wife, a woman she had treated like her own daughter for years. Still not satisfied, my wife began contacting our mutual friends, twisting the narrative to make herself appear the victim of my supposed betrayal, conveniently leaving out her own infidelity and her push for an open marriage. Some friends believed her version of events, but those who truly knew us saw right through the lies. Her most vindictive move was reaching out to Violet's family, even her elderly parents, attempting to paint me as a gold digger preying on their daughter. Violet was furious, but handled the situation with her usual grace, calmly explaining the reality to her family. She then invited me to stay with her for a while, and I accepted. Living with Violet, even temporarily, threw into stark contrast the difference between my past and my present. Our relationship was built on mutual respect, honesty, and real affection, not manipulation and deceit. Meanwhile, at work, my wife's behavior continued to deteriorate. She missed important deadlines, lashed out at colleagues, and made barely concealed jabs at Violet during meetings. After repeated warnings, Violet, carefully adhering to company policy, arranged for HR to place my wife on a performance improvement plan to ensure impartiality. Rather than improve, my wife retaliated by accusing the company of harassment and threatening to sue. The company's legal team, fully informed about the personal circumstances, meticulously documented evidence and gathered co-worker testimonies that cast serious doubt on my wife's claims. When her legal efforts unraveled, she ultimately chose to resign, blaming Violet and me for the downfall of her professional life. Throughout the divorce proceedings, my wife resorted to numerous tactics designed either to delay the outcome or extract additional concessions from me. She fabricated stories about our shared assets, sought to paint my relationship with Violet as an act of betrayal, despite the fact we had agreed to an open marriage, and even alleged she had suffered emotional harm. Thankfully, I had kept careful records, including evidence of our mutual agreement to pursue an open marriage and her own written admissions of prior infidelity that predated it. Acting on my attorney's advice, I put forward a fair settlement proposal in hopes of avoiding a prolonged court struggle. However, my wife initially refused the offer, instead demanding a vastly unequal share of the marital assets, despite having contributed far less financially during our time together. It was Violet who helped me see the situation clearly. She doesn't just want equity. She wants to see you suffer, she pointed out. Offer her a bit more than necessary, but give her a strict deadline. Appeal to her greed while taking away her ability to keep dragging this out. Taking Violet's advice to heart, I proposed a slightly more generous offer paired with a non-negotiable expiration date. Faced with the reality of an expensive court battle she could no longer finance due to her job loss, my wife reluctantly accepted the terms. Exactly 6 months after I had moved out, the divorce was finalized. During that transitional time, my relationship with Violet deepened. Once the paperwork was complete, we moved in together, and for the first time in my life, I felt what it meant to have a partner who genuinely uplifted and supported me. Violet not only championed my professional goals, but also introduced me to her circle of friends who welcomed me warmly and without hesitation. She demonstrated that a relationship could empower rather than exhaust you. Some months after the divorce, I happened to run into my ex-wife's sister at a local grocery store. She seemed hesitant, but eventually came over to speak to me. "I know what really happened," she said quietly. "One night, after she'd had a few drinks, my sister told me everything. According to her sister, my wife had never believed I would actually find someone else, especially someone like Violet. Her plan had been that I would fail at dating, grow lonely, and agree to close the marriage again on her terms once she had finished exploring other options. Her sister also revealed that my wife had harbored envy toward Violet long before she became a visible part of our lives. Violet embodied everything my wife longed for: success, admiration, influence, and social standing. What hurt her wasn't any lingering affection for me, but rather the fact that once again, Violet possessed something she desperately desired. "She's relocating next month," her sister added. "She says there are just too many painful reminders here. I thought you should know." As I listened, a complex mix of emotions surged through me. Relief that she would soon be out of my orbit, regret over the years wasted with someone who had never truly valued me, and immense gratitude for the series of unexpected events that had led me to Violet. Today, Violet and I are engaged. We're planning a small, intimate wedding with only our closest friends and family, dedicating ourselves to building a future together instead of dwelling on old wounds. Violet's business continues to flourish, and with her encouragement, I have successfully launched my own event planning company. From what I've heard through mutual contacts, my ex-wife has started seeing someone new in her new city. I genuinely hope she's found some measure of happiness and has taken important lessons from our shared past. Sometimes the excitement you chase blinds you to the stability you already have, and sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as calamities. Looking back, I can't ignore the irony that it was my wife's idea to open our marriage that ultimately brought about its end, and led me to the most profound relationship of my life. If there's any lesson to be taken from all this, it's a simple but powerful one. Be cautious about what you wish for. You just might get it, but not in the way you expect. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.